lot of sponsors came together to make this happen. This truly was a community project. So I just want to start before we turn to Jack Stetson, who wrote, by the way, a wonderful book on the Great Danbury State Fair. I encourage you to pick up a copy. But I'm going to ask Cindy Merkel from Union Savings Bank to come forward, because they were the first to step forward and say, we want to help with this project, we believe in it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So, Cindy.
Thank you, Mayor. And on behalf of the bank and I think the business sector, we thank you for the initiative here. I think Union Savings is becoming the monument bank, working on the monument, the Hatter Monument over at City Hall. But this is a great day for the town of Danbury, city of Danbury. And again, it would not have happened without this gentleman behind us. So thank you for letting us be a part of it. Congratulations.
She's pretty cool, no question about that. I do also want to recognize our Commissioner of Veterans Affairs from the state of Connecticut, Tom Sadi, is with us here today. Tom, congratulations. And we also have a number of city officials that worked really hard to put all this together. It wasn't easy because money came in through GoFundMe, came in through a variety of different capacities. Dave St. Hilaire is around here somewhere, and his staff in our building department. Sharon Calicio picked the spot, so if you don't like it, yell at her. But I think it's apropos, particularly with what we're looking to do with the connection into New York City out of our train station. Would make a lot of sense to welcome people with Uncle Sam here in the city of Danbury. So without further ado, on this, I believe, Jack, where are you? Is it the 175th anniversary of the fair? 150th anniversary this fall of the Great Danbury State Fair. I thought it would be appropriate for Jack Stetson to come forward, give us a few words, a few thoughts. Jack?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for bringing two relics of the Danbury Fair here this afternoon. This wonderful Uncle Sam and myself. I was asked to give a history of the Danbury Fair and also John W. Leahy and his involvement in it in less than 7.5 minutes. And in order to do that, I have to speak very quickly or leave out a whole lot of stuff. I've decided to leave out a whole lot of stuff because the blanks can be filled in by the book that the mayor mentioned that is for sale at the Danbury Museum at 43 Main Street, or the Danbury Railway Museum right behind you. It's a wonderfully written book in concert with my grandmother, who finished her part in 1956, and I picked it up a few years ago and completed the history of the fair to its end. So we'll roll back the calendar to 150 years to 1869. Samuel H. Rundle and Jacob Merritt were hatters in this community, and they did very well. And as a hobby, they raised trotting horses. They wished to have a sanctioned circuit location, venue for their trotting horses, and they went over where the fairgrounds was and bought the property over there in the summer of 1869, and quickly threw together a horse track that would be suitable to sanctioning. Within a few weeks, the town fathers, a group of them, approached them and said, this is a great idea, why don't we join with you guys and have a town fair? Those people, for the record, were Sam Rundle, Jacob Merritt, George C. White, Benjamin Linus, George Copperthwaite, Lyman Keeler, J.M. Ives. Now those are a lot of last names that you'll recognize on the streets around town. These are history-making Danburyans. So very quickly they borrowed a tent from the Barnum Bailey Circus, and the first fair was held on Wednesday, October 6th for 3 days in 1869. It was successful. They made a few bucks at the end and determined that they would be able to do this going on. As they did this, they needed, of course, more capital, and they opened it up to, they called it the Danbury Farmers and Manufacturers Association, which was a stock company, and they sold stock to all the citizens of Danbury that were interested. As a result, the Danbury Fair truly became a community asset. It grew and grew, and they took their money that they made every year and plowed it into the facility and built more buildings, and it became more and more important as they went along. The fair became not only a harvest festival, but it was the social media of the time. Because of the slow mode of travel getting around, people didn't get to see each other every year or more often, especially the farmers. So they got together at the fair and talked about what the growing season was like and compared notes on what to use, what not to use. And it turned into friendly competition. Also turned into a trade show where they exhibited farm equipment, cars, all kinds of other inventions, including an exhibit of the public address system as it was coming into play back in the early 1900s. They also had plenty of live entertainment, and because of its dates about a month before the elections, it became a political forum as well, so the candidates could come out and meet the public face to face. The fair suffered several setbacks over the years, among them 4 devastating fires, which they did recover from one at a time. And the one people would recognize would be in 1922. The wooden grandstand burned down and was replaced by the grandstand that most of us remember. The fair went along and grew like crazy and was the biggest fair in the state of Connecticut and was well attended and was going along just fine until December 7th, 1941, the day of infamy. World War II took 6 million people off to the overseas to service their country. Many, many other millions were engaged in the war effort. As a result, the government rationed fuel, tires, anything made out of metal, and it precluded people from traveling and doing anything outside of it, just getting to work and doing it. As a result, the fair closed. 2 or 3 years went by, and there was no fair and there was no end in sight to World War II. Along came John W. Leahy. Mr. Leahy owned and operated the fuel oil company that we see next door, and he had always been interested in show business. And a lady customer had come in and offered him a share of her stock of the Danbury Fair. And he looked it over and he said, well, why not? So he bought the share of stock from her, took it home to his wife Gladys and said, I bought a share of Danbury Fair stock today. And she looked at him and said, whatever are you going to do with that? And he said, well, I don't really know. But the next day he ran down to the offices of Mortimer Rundle and George Nevius, who were the current operators of the fair, and explained to him that he was interested. And they began to tell him the problems. They had big bank mortgages on the big top that had burned down in 1941 before December 7th. And they had no income coming in, and they had to bear the taxes and the insurance and the maintenance costs. And they didn't know if the fair would ever revive. So John convinced them that he thought it would, and he was able to convince them to buy their large blocks of share stock. After that, he and his wife Gladys went around the countryside picking up a share here and a share there from individual shareholders who didn't think the fair would open either. Shortly by 1943, he had the controlling interest in the fair, and they were off and running. He paid off the mortgage at the Danbury National Bank. He plowed tens of thousands into this facility, which was falling down. He paved the roads, he painted the buildings, he re-roofed and resealed many, many of the buildings in preparation for opening the first fair with his able assistant, C. Irving Jarvis, in the fall of 1946. After that, the thing continued to grow, and Mr. Leahy added his unique touch to the Danbury Fair with statues such as this big and bigger, with every conceivable object, fairy tale, nursery rhymes, and everything. He also added 3 theme villages, the New England Village, the Goldtown Western Village, and the New Amsterdam Dutch Village. He added several museums as a collector of old wagons and tools and transportation vehicles and whatnot, and he built up a collection of thousands of things. So the Danbury Fair became not only an entertainment facility, but also a museum. The off-season comprised of midget races for many years, and as the interest in them petered out, he discovered the Southern New York Racing Association and asked them to come join. And they had a very, very successful run, being probably the only sporting event, if you will, that weekly drew 6,000 to 7,000 people. State 84 was built, which was not only a blessing to the fair, but also a good cause of its demise. Danbury was finally reachable from all over the world with Interstate 84, and the Danbury Fair sat right at the junction of U.S. Routes 6, 7, and 84. That went along fine until Mr. Leahy passed away. He passed away in 1975, and that began an era of uncertainty. I had become vice president when Mr. Jarvis died in 1969, and Fred Fern, became president at the demise of Mr. Leahy. We operated more or less as a caretaker administration, and we continued the fair in the same pattern that had been. Added many improvements, added a lot of free music and free shows, and people still got their buck. In 1979, the fair administration signed a agreement to sell the fair to the Wilma-Wright Company. I'll have to tell you that even though I was vice president and had a title like that, I was one of the last to know and one of the most shocked. For 2 more years we ran the fair, and finally wondering if the Wilma-Wright Company was going to actually close on this option, we kind of made plans to go forward, but at the very last day they exercised the option, and the 1981 fair was the last one. And I'm so pleased that we're able to bring back a piece of it in person, if that's a person, of Uncle Sam, and I thank you, Mayor, for achieving that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jack. I do want to recognize former Fire Chief, City Councilman Phil Curran that's with us. I saw our Police Chief, Patrick Ridenour, as well as our Fire Chief, TJ Weedle, and Chief Marco Masta there hiding in the back. So we appreciate that as well. There were, give a round of applause. There were a number of people that helped with in-kind donations besides just straight cash donations. So I'm going to ask, before Paul Valeri speaks on behalf of the museum, I'm going to ask Antonio Idarola, our Director of Public Works, who had the job after I made the deal for Uncle Sam of getting him from Lake George, New York, here to where you see in his place. So Antonio, if you come forward and just kind of articulate all those terrific people that helped us out.
Thank you. What a great turnout. I'm like all the hard work, this is what it was for. But so I get a call one night from the mayor, often late night, and he said, I just bought Uncle Sam, you need to go get him. He's up in Lake George. I'm like, right now? And that was the beginning of a long journey. But it's probably one of the most unique projects I've ever worked on. And I'm so glad that we were able to accomplish and bring them back. I can't tell you the number of business owners that have called and asked to help on this project. And when we needed a foundation, we called Rizzo Corp. There was no hesitation. Whatever you need, Antonio, we designed it in the office. We gave them the plans. They came and put a foundation, which is about 12 feet deep. We needed somebody to move them. We called Angelo from Mariana Movers. He moved them 4 or 5 times. He stuck them in a hangar for us while we stored them, and it just goes on from there. We needed some paving done. We called Colleen from American Specialty Paving. No problem, Antonio. When do we need to show up? And then we had Jim's Welding. Jim was, every time we called him, no matter what we needed, whether it was a bolt, whether it was steel beams, whether it was figuring out how to build a skeleton, there's a full-blown skeleton inside of him. And Jim's like 6'2". I'm not going to give you his weight, but he's a big boy. Look at that trap door in the back. He went in and out of that trap door and welded every single piece of steel frame that's inside of him. So, and good thing it was kind of cool when we did that. But Jim, I know you're here. I can't thank you enough. You can start taking my calls now. And there's a number of other people. I welcome you to take a look at the plaques that are on these walls. Everybody really helped out. So I want to thank everybody for doing that. And I want to thank the mayor for giving me an opportunity to work on a project that is so unique. Before I go, I just want to give you not quite as intricate of a history, but Uncle Sam was actually built by International Fiberglass Company, and they were in Venice, California. And two of them, there's another one just like Uncle Sam that is in Ohio right now. But they were commissioned by a business owner in Toledo who wanted two Uncle Sams to hold hamburgers in front of his hamburger establishment. So the hand that you see was actually turned the opposite way and was holding a big hamburger. But the hamburger was so big and it created such a leverage point that Uncle Sam kept falling on his face. So they eventually got rid of the hamburger and he just stuck out there for years basically looking for money. Unfortunately, Sam's business never made it, and in 1971, the fair bought him, and that's the history of how he came to Danbury. But incredible statue. Robin's graphics that's here. Robin, he's here. I got to bring him up because this guy, Robin, are you still here? He was looking for food before. There he is.
Let's give Robin a round.
Come here, Robin. Come here, Robin. Robin helped me do the research regarding, he actually did quite a bit of it, to be honest with you. What his facial features look like? Because Uncle Sam had fallen over so many times and had been repaired so many different ways, using everything you could think of, that his entire face was deformed. So what Robin did is he kept going down into the layers until he found the original fiberglass, and he redid his entire face as it was created in the early 60s. So, Robin, I can't thank you enough, and for all your hard work. And every time I came to his shop and said, no, I don't like it, I'm going to do it different, we need to do it different, Robin never stopped working. So, thank you again, and I appreciate it. You and your son. Where's Mark? Now, Robin was inside Uncle Sam, but if you could see how small Robin is, he was in and out of him, no problem. Jim's welding, now we're talking a classic challenge. So, but thank you all for coming.
There's been a little debate about who has the tallest Uncle Sam in the world. So I wanted to spell that debate right now. This is the tallest Uncle Sam statue in the world. Right? The one out in the Midwest does not count. It's standing on a platform, a wooden platform that's about 15 feet high. So this is really the granddaddy of them all right here in the city of Danbury, and we're proud, obviously, to have them. At this time, I'm going to ask Paul Valeri, as a representative of the Danbury Museum and a trustee there, just to spend a few minutes with some thoughts and reflections, and then I'll have some final thoughts. We're going to cut a ribbon, and he will be officially dedicated. So, Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of the Danbury Museum and Historical Society, the Board of Trustees, Bridget Gerton, who's away with her family right now on vacation, we are so proud and happy to see Uncle Sam back where he belongs, here in the city of Danbury. We are so thrilled. He is so important to the museum, and I'll tell you how important it gets. We have a dynamic group of volunteers and staff. The staff is really on par with what you'll find in Manhattan. Volunteers on the hundreds. We have a major presence on the social media. Last year we got over 400,000 hits, and out of that, better than a third of the hits were relative to postings on the Great Danbury State Fair. The synergy with this is amazing. It is one incredible opportunity. We cannot thank the mayor too much at all. We really thank him sincerely for the teamwork and effort that it took to bring Uncle Sam to Danbury. And Mayor Bowden, you are to be applauded for that effort. It is is one heck of an opportunity for us here in the city to have this here. And you know why? It's really this simple. You come upon this and you feel like a kid. You feel like a child. That is a joyful thing. And we ask you to remember, come here, bring your kids, take a picture at night. When he's illuminated at night, it is spectacular. Remember, please, to follow up. Bring your kids. I say bring your kids. You have to be probably a minimum of 40 years old to have actually attended the fair. I can remember bringing my son, who's now 40, when he was 3.5, the last day of the fair. So what is it? Why do we all, were we so enthused? We in Danbury were always taken by the fair. This location here that Sharon chose is par excellence, and I'll tell you why. The mayor already mentioned the city here is expected, we hope, to have a direct line to Manhattan. Let them come off and see this. The other thing so appropriate to the Stetson Leahy family is right there behind us, where you see the billboard applauding Uncle Sam. Well, in our youth, that was where you went Christmas time, because John Leahy would have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer out there with Santa, and we so look forward to that. And then we would come back here Easter time for the bunny. So come, embrace this. Come to the museum. We have our treasure trove of connections to this. Come to the museum now. There's a spectacular exhibit there which will get you integrated with downtown Danbury. Come and visit the museum. Our volunteers are so passionate. Elaine Lagardo on fair memorabilia, and Michael Flanagan on race. It's just incredible, the passion. So come here, feel like a kid again. Mayor Bowden, thank you for letting us feel like a kid again.
Okay, all right, we're going to do a countdown. You guys ready? Oh, come on. Are you ready? Yeah! Who's got the largest Uncle Sam statue in the world? Danbury! All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.